So I thought I'd try writing something and reading it. After I watched my last video, I thought, gee, if you take out all the hemming and hawing, I could probably have used up half the viewer's time and also made the points more clearly. However, I've never been very good at written speeches or talking in general for all that matter. Here's my topics for today. Herb Cohen, Ahmet Zappa, Jack White, and Troutmouse Replica. I may have said things in the past that would suggest that I demonize Ahmet. I don't think I have, but just to clarify, when I first dealt with him, there had been a very public split between he and Dweezil, which must have been tough for Ahmet, who was taking over as head of ZFT. So I'd like to describe my experience with Ahmet concerning our original phone conversation and a later meeting at his office. I guess I got his attention about 5 years ago when I posted on social media that there is yet another release of Troutmouse Replica and no compensation for the band. I am paraphrasing, but that post got Ahmet's attention. I thought, great, and just waited for the scheduled call. He eventually called late and apologized as he was just wrapping up buying a sound system for the office and had almost completed the purchase but needed 10 more minutes or so. So he called back within a few minutes and I almost immediately felt at ease with him. He reminded me of Frank in terms of being down to earth and approachable. I didn't sense any of the manipulatory or fast talk or sales pitch or anything. He told me about his experience with Frank, who saw his business potential and so bought him books and encouraged him to read about the business world. He said that his dad called him his little entrepreneur or tycoon or some such word. He said that Dweezil, on the other hand, was completely devoted to guitar and, in his terms, an awesome guitarist. He had no lack of enthusiasm for his brother's abilities, but also said that he lived at home until he was 37, whereas Ahmet moved out when he was 18. I sensed at this point that what he was telling me was that Gail knew that Ahmet was probably the guy most qualified to handle CFT, and that this was probably why a controlling interest was given to him. The conversation lasted 30 to 40 minutes, and one of the things Ahmet said to me was, "It is an honor to speak with you, John," which I thought was very nice of him to say. I told him about the fact that in all the years, we, meaning the band, had never received payment for any kind for the Troutmouse Replica recording, and admitted readily that we didn't have a leg to stand on legally because there was no contract, as I had not yet discovered the contract at that point. The second meeting with Ahmet Zappa, was in person at the Zappa office in Hollywood. It was upstairs, and I brought a friend from Scotland who just happened to be in town. It didn't turn out to be a good idea because I really needed to talk to Ahmet one-on-one about Troutmouse Replica, and we didn't get a chance to really do that. We walked into an office containing 3 women, only one of whom I knew, Melanie Starks. The other 2 I was unfamiliar with. I had met Melanie when I used to go to the Zappa compound up on Woodrow Wilson Drive and pick up. I used to pick up albums, Bat Chain Puller albums, after it was released, to sell as merch on the merch table when I was touring. So I'd go down there usually about a week before and grab the albums, and then I'd take them to England with me. The other 2 women in the office I was unfamiliar with, but one was later introduced to me as Ahmet's wife, Shana. She had on a pretty sort of modest, semi-casual dress and was very pretty. Ahmed offered us a drink as he had a fairly substantial bar in the meeting room, or waiting room as I later thought of it. It had a couch, a couple of chairs against the far wall, but my friend, being an AA member, um, didn't want to drink, so I suggested coffee, as we had just had lunch at Musso and Frank's, for heaven's sakes, and a coffee would be quite uplifting. Ahmed had to wash the mugs and saucers and make the coffee on the spot, but didn't seem to mind at all. He had a strong sense of hospitality. Mostly he talked with my friend, as my friend wanted to open a Thai restaurant in Thailand, as if there aren't enough. Anyway, the business in both of them came out to the forefront. I talked a little later about my experiences of working with Frank, but it was more of a social call than a business meeting. Now, even though the Magic Man had no contract nor legal claim to the album, Ahmet gave the four of us 3%, 0.75% each, cut of the profits. However small it seemed, it meant a lot to all of us that he actually gave us this with absolutely no legal reason. In my talks with Ahmet, mostly the first phone conversation, I had the strong impression that he is watching out for his siblings' welfare first and foremost. I have nothing negative to say about Ahmet at all. He seems like a fair guy, and I know that the weight of handling ZFT must, at times, lay heavily upon his shoulders. Also, the fact that there was a missing contract for years is no way at all the fault of the Zappa family trust. The blame for that lies totally upon the late Herb Cohen, who had the contract in his files all the years until his death, and never once thought it was worth paying us for our efforts, though legally bound to do so. If you've never read my book, then you have no idea of the band's struggle to put this material together into recordable form and how difficult it was to deal with Don Van Fleet, who, genius that he was also nearly impossible to deal with on a personal or musical level. As I mentioned, the album was number 33 of the top 100 albums of all time in Rolling Stone magazine in 1988. Ahmet wasn't even born when the album was recorded. Ironic in a way. Yet, he took the time to call me and tell me what an honor it was to speak to me. So I hold no ill will toward Ahmet at all, and I feel that it is necessary to make that clear. I do, however, hold the late Herb Cohen responsible for all the unpaid royalties, and I feel that ZFT's claim to the album comes with that bit of baggage. They own the master, and they own the baggage of unpaid royalties that comes with that. Discogs, which is an online record of released albums and other recorded materials, states that Drop S Replica has been released in various forms and in various countries throughout the world 92 times. I have delved deeply into the numbers. No, I haven't delved deeply into the numbers, nor do I know that any exist for units sold. But I do realize that ZFT probably was paid for most of it, if not all, of those releases because they own the master. So now I address you, Ahmet, and Jack White. How much are we who spent 9 months of 10 to 14-hour days rehearsing and recording this classic masterpiece worth? Why are we almost totally ignored? And now, with a copy of the signed contract in your hands, showing that we signed as a band, what do you think our loss over the past 55 years is worth? How much differently would our lives have been had we been recognized and, even more importantly, legitimized for a contribution to the project. By the way, I wasn't even credited for drumming on the album until it was released on CD, and only then because I threatened to sue Don if my name was not added. Put yourselves in our shoes. I was tossed downstairs after the completion of the project by Don Van Fleet. A few months later, Jeff Cotton's ribs were kicked in by my replacement drummer at a band meeting, and he was hospitalized. It was a serious time, and it was a very intense time. Bill and Mark went on and put together the highly acclaimed Lick My Decals Off Baby with Bill as the musical director, which was the next evolutionary step in the style of that music. But by that time, Don was signing as an independent agent, and the band never got paid a living wage, ever. Not even studio fees most of the time. The Zappa Family Trust recently sold the Zappa Vault, and Jack White is certainly not wanting for money with a net worth, according to the internet, of $60 million. How much money is enough money? I suggest, instead of keeping us in the dark, why not work with us? We've got resources you could use. Signing things, for example, album covers, inserts, whatever. What's more, our endorsement would encourage more sales, as I've made it very clear in my book that we were never paid royalties for this album. We also have 12 hours of Zoom meetings in the process of being edited with hosts Billy Bob Thornton, Matt Groening, Steve Froy, and Samuel Andreeff about this very album. What about a bonus single of the original Trout Mask Band revisiting two of the pieces? I would suggest Steal Softly Through Snow and Hair Pie. What I'm saying is that there's a lot we could offer and do if we were working together. I propose a settlement to handle, once and for all, the 55 years of non-royalty payments, a financial settlement that would allow us to sign off on the years of non-payment and feel a small sense of closure, plus a decent royalty rate on the future sales. I think working with ZFT could be a win-win for all of us. I've never seen a group of people work as hard on any project ever as the Trout Mask Band, and the album is a masterpiece that stands alone. There is nothing else like it at all. It fits no category. If I can sum it up in one phrase, I think we deserve better. Thank you for listening.